Welcome back to the Dividend Diplomat YouTube channel, guys. It's your boys, Bert and Lanny, the DD, the best dividend investing channel here. Guys, look at he's trying to get all Fonzarelli over
Yeah.
here.
I'm
It
just
is the
missing my
night.
gold chain. That's what I'm
Yeah,
missing
it's
here.
it's the night of November 19th. We're gonna have a little discussion about two dividend ETFs, the stance that I still take, and why both dividend ETFs are solid.
Smash that subscribe button, everybody. Follow your boys here on the Dividend Diplomats YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Also, go back to the last video if you haven't already. Get that 1 to 400 likes. So you enter the swag contest. We're gonna pick the winner on Saturday before the video if we cross 400. So
Yep. Pay attention to the last video, guys. It's a good one. It's a big dividend stock, but it's probably gobbling up shares on.
but we're here talking about another topic, Lanny. Let's dive right into this.
Another topic, guys. So for the last, gosh, almost 3.5 years, I've been on a path. If you guys don't remember, I've invested well over 100 grand. I've crossed over 1,000 shares of Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF. Ticker symbol is VYM. And here we are. I know there's a lot of debate. SCHD is the best dividend ETF. Lanny, why the heck do you invest in VYM? What are you thinking? What is the point? What are you doing? Well, I figured, hey, let's just put it all here on the channel. Let's put it all on a video.
Mhm.
Let's talk through some of the bullet points here, guys, and we'll occasionally throw up, some of the stock chart
Yeah.
metrics of both ETFs. Again, Bert owns both
Yep.
SCHD and has a little bit of VYM. SCHD is a great ETF, guys.
Yeah, and these are the two big ones in the dividend growth investing community. We're always tweeting about the two of them. So it's always good to just sit down, have a more discussion-based video, hear why Lanny loves VYM, why he's committed to the path, and why he continues to stay on it because it's his preferred option. And remember that it's all personal preference here. That's the beauty of investing.
Yeah. So, guys, Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF, some of the differences between both, VYM's got over 450 positions. Some may think that's a terrible thing. Some may think it's a great thing. I'm cool with it because it just reduces the risk overall, reduces the volatility just a little bit more than SCHD,
Mhm.
which, you could argue in down markets, you've seen that. Whereas last year, BYM, performed slightly better than SCHD. This year, they're performing slightly better than SCHD. Again, down markets, you're kind of downside protect your risk a little bit, but you might miss on a lot of the upside like you get with SCHD.
Yeah.
But being a conservative income investor, I'm okay with that. You
Yeah, and
know,
one of the big difference is obviously the number of the holdings, but two, SCHD does that annual rebalancing of their portfolio, or VIM does not. So VIM has its methodology, it sticks to it, it works through the 452 holdings once a year. In April, SCHD famously will go through it and just reshuffle their top 10. They'll pull some in, pull some out, and it really just can change the dynamic of the ETF based on what they pick and how those work out. So there's a lot more noise going on in how SCHD manages their portfolio compared to VYM, where it's a lot quieter.
yep, yeah, can't argue there. Again, both ETFs they'll have a very low expense ratio of 0.06. So you're not going to be paying a lot to own these ETFs. So if you're new to the dividend investing world and you only want to do ETFs, but you want to be a dividend investor, both are very inexpensive at 0.06%.
Mhm.
Um, you know, the ETFs, how long have they been around? That was also kind of always on my mind where VYM's been around just a little bit longer, going on what, 17 years essentially, whereas SCHD really came on after the financial crisis or well after, in the fall of 2011. So it's been around 12 years, again, which is a long time, but, VYM's got at least the time horizon under their belt.
Yeah, it's got some seasoning going along to it. Another point when we're going through just doing some comparisons is the dividend growth. Let's shift gear. We've talked about the number of holdings, we've talked about the long-term history, but let's now focus in on the meat and the potatoes here, especially
Meat
as we're
and the
approaching here
potato.
Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
about the two ETFs. And Lanny, is there anything that jumps out to you as you look back at the dividend growth histories here for VYM and SCHD?
Yeah, first, hey, the last 10 years have been great for both ETFs on dividend growth. SCHD in particular has had an 11.4% average dividend growth over a 10-year period. Whereas VYM, yeah, VYM only has a 6.7% growth rate. I know you heard me say it many times. They usually grow between 6 to 8, sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower. SCHDs, in their 10 years, 2 years were actually negative. So, not that that's bad because you're a long-term investor, but it's something to keep in mind that you don't really want to see at least.
Yeah, so it's going back to a previous point we made, just more noise. SCHD seems to be a little bit louder of an ETF, where VYM is a little bit more predictable from the dividend growth standpoint too.
Yeah, and I'm using right now the trailing 12 months, just to get it clean. Hey, using the last 4 quarters versus the last 4 quarters versus the last, everything is ending on September 30th in this analysis. So again, you're going to do great with SCHD on the dividend growth, but you just might be a little bit more consistent on the VYM. Granted, you might not have those big spikes like you see with SCHD. Like, hey, SCHD this year is having a solid year, even with, I think they had 1 quarter that was a negative growth rate, but I think they've made up for it with the other quarters on the dividend growth side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so let's just run through here, Lanny. Let's just go through the metrics here. VYM, SCHD. Let's take a little bit more into the quantitative part, just see the metrics side by
yeah,
side here.
that's
Do we
good.
want to go through VYM first and SCHD, or do we want to go through the metrics side by side?
Let's go side by side, Jack.
Yes. All right. So let's start here. That first one, the price to earnings ratio here. Again, we're using the publicly available information for the earnings per share. Let us know what sources you use to figure this out. If you disagree with the numbers, we'd love to hear it. VYM's price as of the 17th was 105.27. The EPS was $7.30. That's a PE ratio of 14.42. Compare that to SCHD, whose price was 71.14, 496 earnings per share, 14.34. Boom. Both PE ratios are right in line with each other.
Yeah, both pretty incredibly sound right there. Undervalued for sure for both of them, which is why Bert keeps buying, which is why I keep buying. And the dividend, though, let's get to the payout ratio here. This is where things look even more even keel. VYM pays 335 trailing 12 months, SCHD 262 trailing 12 months. 46% payout ratio for VYM, very safe. SCHD 53%, very safe as well. So both are solid.
Yeah, so let's look at that 5-year growth rate. VYM's 5-year dividend growth rate is 5.64%, right about where you said it would be, Lanny. SCHD's is 13.81%. So again, higher dividend growth rate, like you had said, despite some of the up, down, up, down, up, down to get you to that 13%.
Right. Current yield 3.19% with VYM, which is slightly over their 5-year average, which is 3.02%. Now, Bert, you got to talk about SCHD's dividend yield because that one looks sweet.
It is 3.68%. So that's why a lot of people have historically flocked to SCHD over VYM. It has a slightly higher premium there in the dividend yield. That's the one big thing that always jumps out.
Exactly. So down 2.5% VYM this year, down 5.7% SCHD, down 5% VYM in 1 year, down 7.8% SCHD over the last year. So from a price standpoint, VYM is performing quote unquote slightly better than SCHD just over the last year or so.
Yeah, and I mean, let's look at it compared to the 5-year average yield. VYM's current yield is 3.19%. Their 5-year average is 3.02%. Again, SCHD's current yield is 3.68%. Their 5-year average yield is 3.14%. So there's a much larger spread there for the SCHD investment.
Yeah, so there you guys have it. I own over 1,100 shares of VYM. What do you think about me continuing the purchase, the consistency, and the 3+% yield, 6+ to 7+% dividend growth? Or, is it time for me to reconsider? What do you guys think? Should I move back? Should I move back, or not even back, but should I move to SCHD? Let me know in the comments.
Yeah, similarly, we've been adding 2 shares per week for my wife. We might even be bumping it up to 3 here soon. We built our position to 116 shares of SCHD. Should we pump the brakes on that and go over to VYM? What do you think? Let us know in the comments.
That's a Tim Wakefield knuckleball.
Yeah, the old. There's only gonna ever be one knuckleballer in my heart, and it's always gonna be Tim Wakefield.
Darn right, guys. So let us know what your favorite dividend ETF, is. I know there's DGRO. I know there's a lot of other, famous ones out there. SCHD and VYM, though, probably two of the most highly talked about dividend ETFs. So let us know which one you love, which one you own, which one you buy. Let us know in the comments.
If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up. And Lanny, what do we have to tell these fools out there?
Guys, you're either with us or you're against us, Jack. That was Bert, the Hurt, and Lanny from the Dividend Diplomats. Over and out.